Grand Rising, Nubian guys and goddesses. I'm sitting here chilling this morning. I got some music playing, but it is not something that I own. It's coming from off the Music Choice Hip Hop Classics. I don't own the rights to this music. I'm just letting them know right now because you know how they do. I've been trying to catch up on some of my readings, which is it's been kind of hard, you know, I'm trying to stay regular though and keep up. I always put my markers in, but I'm going to finish this book, but I'm gonna be doing a variety of other things too. I'm just trying to keep it, where I can have some quiet time to get into this. But right now I've been reading about the role of color in adaptation phenomena by Francois Raveau. I'm even hoping I'm saying his name right. But I had left off where it was talking about the Africans' travels to France to acquire a useful technique, a new knowledge materialized by a diploma awarded by whites whose demands that are generally overrated, with fear as a more efficient competitor. And we already know about the fear. So I'm going to get started reading about this anxiety neurosis. Please hang in there with me. The anxiety neurosis of one of our first cases, which the author talks about, gravely interfered with his social adaptation shortly after his arrival in France. Upon being requested to make a note of his dreams, he remarked that it was strange to write with a black pencil on white paper rather than with a white pencil on black paper. This was a statement of a major symptom of his neurosis. He accused any whiteness of depersonalizing him, of assaulting his mental integrity. Hence, he developed a series of defense mechanisms, such as refusal to travel by subway, oppressive by the white majority, and repeated sexual failures with white partners because their too white nakedness froze him to impotence. At this point, we suggested that he translate his vision of this new anxiety-ridden world into drawings and colors. He developed a series of pictures, different from one another, but always showing faces whose long-term purpose was the reconciliation of black and white, and evidence of the eradication of the anxiety by the discovery of faces of other colors, such as green or red. More than 300 pictures testify to his evolution, to his progress under psychotherapy. They faithfully reflect first the anxiety, then the attempts at taming non-pathogenic colors, and finally the conquest of his fears. The last pictures are banal insofar as the very clear initial symbolism is hidden by a poor painting technique, but the latest canvas is sufficiently expressive to mark a reconciliation of his black color with the white color of some of his fellow men. From 19 of these pictures, we shall extract a certain number of things pertaining to this subject, but often found in the history of other neuroses. We will distinguish several stages in the subject's case history. In a way, the subject's work, like that of any painter, will be characterized by specific stylistic periods, each having its particular meaning. The order of study is naturally chronological, and we will take our examples from groups of 10 to 30 canvases or drawings. We do not propose to discuss the psychiatric problem in depth, but through the symptoms of a slice of history to delineate the importance that the perception of a life history can assume. This guy, that he was having an issue with this with the whiteness of people. You know, um, it is a little paradoxical to write of color when the illustrations of themselves are much more representative of reality. But publishing imperatives prevent us from reproducing here the 20 or so examples chosen for the conference in Copenhagen. The first works evidence a period of ambivalence. There is a desire to be white and thereby to transcend the level of the color that sets the patient apart. So they're dealing with a patient in a study. This means identifying himself with another being who looks, notices, and rejects. With another being who looks, notices, and rejects. Finally, it means becoming an anxiety-ridden white man. The rendering gives a strong impression of fear stemming from the awareness that there is no possible solution. A hybrid being is looking out at the patient. The eyes are black, the contours are strongly delineated and suggest an African morphology. To the subject, this means the oniric possibility of becoming white, but all the time he knows that within himself he is really black and that the gaze of others will pierce through him. Hence, the burden of anxiety before the impassive. All the problems of identification with a model are present here. Moreover, these difficulties occur at a formative age, which for these young Africans set apart is one of assimilating a white culture, a process often symbolized for many years by attempts to dress in the Western manner. The subjects strive by typical dress or a uniform to identify themselves with the function they are going to occupy, diplomat, financier, and so forth. Much has already been written on the theme of the concern for appearances. English English speaking Africans tend to adopt the Oxfordian image as it is stereotyped in the movies, whereas the French speaking try to identify themselves with the high ranking civil servants of the Croix d'Orsay. With Africans, this attempt becomes more perceptible thanks to cosmetics and other aids to feminine beauty. A content analysis of the advertising in the American magazine Ebony shows how great are the temptations for a Negro woman and man to modify their color by means of various artifices. Recently, some beauticians have opened shops in Paris specializing in this kind of activity. Now, I know you guys know about the issue of skin whitener creams and liquids and whatever you want to call it that are plaguing Africa and India, where the people uh, lighten their skin and it's peeling off when they put this concoction on, and it's just like this is an evil in itself. If you to me, and I'm trying to not talk about what I'm thinking about it necessarily, but I mean I've seen him do the process, and it's not funny. It's really sad. And this is, however, quite often the beginning of a guilty conscience. Africans are free citizens of African republics. They must therefore come into their own both politically and nationally. This is much easier for them than for the Negroes of the United States, for instance, who are caught in the clutches of a culture that defines them by exclusion. This contradiction has been used as a means of protection by some of the center's test groups from the Antilles and from the Malagasy Republic. During their period of adaptation in France, colored Haitians recognize and assert their color, which they claim as part of their being of another nationality and therefore different. By virtue of this, they enjoy a greater freedom of movement within the hostile situation. On the other hand, those from Martinique are simply black and fully French by virtue of the political situation of their island. Hospital statistics on more than 80 cases have shown that the Martinicans' mental pathology is the most assertive on the racial theme of all the colored men living in France. A similar phenomenon has been observed in the case of the Malagasys, men from the high plateaus who encounter definite signs of discrimination because of the color of their skin during their stay in France justify this behavior by remembering their own discriminatory attitude at home toward their darker compatriots of the coast on the Grand Isle. The latter, on the other hand, are more vulnerable, with their backs to the weak wall of their recent nationality. They must fight the struggle demanded by the awareness of their being different. Wow. This thing went everywhere, separating the black man from each other. Divisions, names, different names, and all of this stuff is psychological. Let us now return to the patient, who at this initial stage insists on the importance of the black line to delineate the human form in drawing. In the course of psychotherapeutic sessions, he naively develops many of the familiar themes of negritude, extolled by Senghor and Caesar, of whom he has not even heard. This style of expression marks the beginning of his attempt to fix the value of color. Thus, he argues, without the black stroke, there is no white shape. Hence, the stroke is the most important, and therefore only the black counts. This is part of a long litany that, in addition to discovery, has the value of self-assertion before the white therapist. It is the start of a sincere and therefore violent contact, aggressive but indispensable to the patient's free expression of his psychological conflicts. Yep. It develops much more markedly in the third part of the iconography. There appeared then the first attempts to introduce true colors, white and black not being colors in the strict sense of the word. The problem of form and color is thereby quite naturally posed, emphasizing the profound gap that can exist between the morphology of the face and body and their color. What is significant for the subject is not the form of a nose, of lips, of hair, but their color value. He later attempts to modify form, but essentially at the symbolic level, hastening the change of skin color in an almost ritualistic manner. At the at first, the subject applies colors not to bodies, but to the objects surrounding them. One leitmotif is the sun in the shape of a red star accompanied by flames, an explicit assertion expressing a wish for the annihilation of the white man by Africa. The bodies are hidden by white fabrics. In daily life, the patient expresses his aggressiveness by violent street fights, acts of rebellion, and perpetual criticism of his profound milieu. Worn out by the rebuffs brought on by his behavior and analyzed during psychotherapeutic sessions, he makes attempts at reconciliation in a new series where black and white shake hands under a flowing shroud. The African can be recognized by a red tone, the French by neutral blue tone. This attempt at amnesty would be a failure in both the subject's real world and that of his phantasms. For that purpose, he identifies red with Africa and suffering. He sees no solution in flight. Disguised in white clothing, thereby becoming a white man, even though in traditional African dress, is inoperative. The subject must then live with white people while remaining black himself. This awareness represents important progress, for it will lead him to a reality that will consist of a beneficial struggle for stability. The young man dreamed a great deal during this period. It is important to stress without too much analysis the identity of the content of his dreams and his pictorial productions. The dreams are hallucinatory episodes in which black and white confront each other, in which Africa and France are closely intermingled. In one dream, for instance, the subject enters a Parisian subway train in Africa, is crushed by a white mob, struggles, and awakes terrified. In another, his home village is inhabited only by anonymous white people who chase him down, drown him, or expel him. These color-oriented dreams are important in the psychotherapeutic treatment of such cases, for they reveal interacting tensions and attest accurately to their development. Many of the patients studied have dreamed of the aggressive, crushing subway. It underscores a kind of claustrophobia they feel when among whites. The treatment of the subway dream undergoes continuous modification, progressing toward an integration of Africa. For example, a red subway fills up with black men in Paris and arrives after a long trip in the native country of the subjects. This return to a happy childhood that had been reconciled with the new adult patient is progressive, as is shown by the second dream, the theme of which is the journey from France to the village in an aircraft. This is always a nightmare because the white aircraft, peopled with whites, is unable to land and crashes. Progressively, the aircraft, after being colored in various manners, succeeds in landing, and the subject walks out to the land of his fathers. But then he sees that he is white and dies. In the dream's next stage, he can go on living, but as a white stranger in his village, recognized by none of his family. Finally, it becomes a pleasant dream. His return is greeted with joy by his black friends and relatives. Sometimes the psychotherapist accompanies him like a brother and is welcomed as such, but he then changes color and becomes black without disturbing the harmonious unfolding of the dream. This is deep, and it just keeps getting going further and further, talking about his dream. I'm going to keep going all the way down to the bottom here, and then I'm going to stop. The pictorial expression thus often meets this other production of the subconscious, the dream, to settle it. But it is no longer the moving picture that remains, simply static images drawn from a particular moment. The patient discovers that a face can be other than white or black, green, for example. He then creates chaotic pictures strongly imbued with exciting color. The eyes, white and red, for they are looking at the white world that must be mastered and suffering. In time, his palette is enriched with new tubes of color. His evolving technique comes to the rescue of expression. It is no longer necessary to delineate with black the faces that are green, yellow, or pink. We then are under the impression of being in the presence of waking dreams where the mastery of means of expression is responsible for the evolution of the neurosis. At this point in the evolution of the patient, an important event occurs. African friends, aware of the difficulties of his life and thinking they have found a solution to his torment, procure a white prostitute for him. The nakedness of the woman and the surprise of the experience frees the young man, preventing him from having successful intercourse with her, even though he has had precocious sexual intercourse in Africa with various women of his own color. Hence, he relapses into anxiety. This episode, although dangerous for the evolution of the treatment as it puts us back months, offers one positive element: the discovery that white skin is rather pinkish. Accordingly, the sheet of white paper is no longer the reflection of a race, nor is the blackness of pencil lead. This is the recognition of an old semantic treason, the analysis of which acquires a liberating effect. At this stage, the evolution in regard to faces becomes more crystallized. The faces painted are no longer anxious but expressionless under the green color. The patient defines them as different from me and from you, at an equal distance from opposed men. The tunic put over the bodies reminds us, however, of that of Nessus, all of suffering. It is symbolized by red and is thereby Africa. At that moment, he integrates into the chest of his creation a plant of the yucca type, a dark image of the anxiety that grips him, that grows within him, black and white. Then a new way of viewing reality seems to lure him on. He develops a series of self portraits, spending much time before the mirror to assure a likeness. Suffering, emphasized by red eyes that are witnesses and by lips that express, still plays an important role. Ever present is the strong solar theme, a permanent protest against the paleness of the sun in the temperature zone, in the temperate zone, which accounts for the whiteness of the country, felt to be dull, cold, and joyless. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there, and I'm gonna be going on into the next section, getting towards the end of this. Oh yeah, I'm is gonna start talking about him being. He's talking about being faced with polychromism in his dress, caricature, um, integration, and like I said before, when I first introduced this book, I said that it's not one of those easy to read books. You know, it doesn't have this character speaking and that character really speaking. This is a very good book to become educated by if you want to really study thoroughly into race, because that's exactly what the title of the book is, Color and Race. And it is coming from 1967, so some things are some of the things are older. So like I don't know if some of you have been had a chance to go back to the very beginning when I first started and follow me along. You know, it'll probably help you to better understand it than just really jumping in. You know, than jumping in for the first time at any at any into any of the sections. Um, so I wish you all. I want to wish you all peace, love, and light today. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Saturday. I'm still working on my guest. You know, people are doing a whole lot of other things, and quite frankly, people are busy, and but I still have the shows that are going to be slated. Uh, I'm hopefully to have one tonight. Um, so just make sure if you get a chance, to just pop in because I just can't, I don't really have a date to forecast. So, but hopefully, this brother will be able to come on tonight. And I'll introduce him at that time. So, but anyway, please get out and enjoy your Saturday. Peace, love, and light. Hotel. I am Empress Wahid.